All right, so today we are waiting for Aliki Ko. She is the creator of Conscious Gems, which is a new project, from my understanding, to create a global village, so to speak, to have a community that is not only in tune with themselves, but in tune with their surroundings and the world as a whole. And we're going to hear from her on her plans for the future and what she sees as sort of the best model of um, working together as conscious human beings. Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up?
Science.
What's going on, sir?
Guys, I got some good news for you.
I'm excited.
Ooh,
You ready?
Hit us with it.
Are you ready?
We're ready.
I love you. That's my name.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
We appreciate you.
Sweet. Nice job.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
Cool.
Goody.
So while we're waiting,
While we're waiting, let's.
Corey, how was your day? No callback? Give you the full call and you just don't answer. Don't call me back.
Which call? Wait, whoa.
Whoa.
Excuse me?
Whoa.
What are you talking about?
Oh, we're going to just pull this up right now.
Oh my God.
Well,
You know what's going on here? Right here. I'm in the shower.
Oh.
In the shower getting ready. And you know what? The thing was,
Walk right here. That's me in the shower.
See these missed calls? See that red? And then what happened was, as soon as I got out of the shower, I just saw all these. I didn't even see your name there because Shauna was like, "Oh, your sister's calling. It's my mom's birthday today. Happy birthday, Kathy Jones. Love you."
Happy birthday.
Yeah. So they wanted me to hop on a FaceTime.
Hello.
Hello.
Aliki is here.
Welcome.
What's up?
Hello.
Hello. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
This is Corey and Jay. They
Nice to
are
meet you.
my friends helping me with this project.
Nice to meet you
Aliki.
both.
Hi, Aliki. Did we meet at the Trans Tech conference?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Okay. Just double checking.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I was in Silicon Valley for this event called Trans Tech. By the way, coolest conference. I have never connected with so many people in my entire life.
I have to agree. Yeah.
At a conference, and I don't know what it is. Is everyone just meditating and just in the zone and like in the moment? But everyone I spoke to, I was just like, oh my God, I've never had that at a conference in my life. So whatever they're doing something right. But I was staying with my friends Ryan and Lome, who run Space VR, spacevr.co, and they invited me to this like after party where this guy who has a PhD in electrical engineering just sold his company, and there were a lot of people doing LSD. I didn't do any LSD. I'm just getting that straight right now. Aliki didn't do any LSD either. But I showed up and people were just doing LSD all over the place, and it was kind of nutty. There was a chess tournament. I beat the guy who just sold his company. I felt really bad about it. I probably should have let him win. But then at some point,
Played chess.
there was a this is what was so nutty for me is there was a ceremony where there was like a two-way staircase that went down to the front door, and we decided to all hold hands and worship a god named Drogo. There was a golden statue with some smoke, and the guy was like using the front doors to blow it open. And maybe that's a common thing. I don't know, but I've kind of used it as like an inside joke with my buddy Ryan all the time. I'm like, yo, bro, that good stuff is happening to you because we worship Drogo, So is this something, or do you worship Drogo often? Am I like being really rude right now? I'm not sure if this is a thing.
What can I say for about this party? Gosh. I have been to insane parties, and there are good insane parties and bad insane parties, right?
Yeah.
It depends on the insanity. So I'll just leave it there.
Okay. Yeah. This is just weird. Honestly, it wasn't even insane. It was just weird. I'd never been to a party where there was like a ceremony where we worshiped like a dragon god. Like, I don't know.
It's like Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones.
I know. But anyway, that's a great icebreaker. We can definitely dive into your stuff now. I apologize.
Yeah, so
I mean, ceremonies can be awesome, but we just have to they should be led by the correct shaman. Take it like that.
Okay.
we want to hear more about Conscious Gems and kind of like explaining it as if, you know, you're talking to a fifth grader. So really simplify, you know, dumb it down for us, and then we'll ask some questions about that. So
Yeah, that's always a difficult part of explaining a whole project, right? Okay, conscious gems. Let's
guess,
imagine. Like I'm always going into imagining how it is to be there, right? I think it's the best way to actually explain anything that you want to create. So imagine stepping into, opening the door and really stepping into the front yard of a beautiful chateau. And the chateau is situated in south of France. And as you step in, there are around 40 people like living in this place, and they know who you are already. They welcome you exactly with your first name, and they really kind of have connected with you already just even before being there. And you already know like that this place will be your house, your home for the next 3 months, and potentially for more than 3 months. And then once you get inside, you really have the time and the space to relax into your being and being able to connect with what it means to be around nature, what it means to be around people who believe in the same dream, what it means to be able to express your craziness and your weirdness with the most respectful way possible, and allow others to understand what brought you there and who you are, and have the chance actually to really deeply understand what is the journey of the other people around there. And starting from this point of deep connection and sharing, ideas will come up, because they always do. And through these ideas might come ventures, might come projects, might come simply ideas, might come connections, might come dances or music or thoughts or podcasts or campaigns. We don't know. Um, our role is not actually to know what will happen. Our role is to create the container that will hold these activities to flourish and really set a statement, let's say, of what does it mean to live together in 2020. We have forgotten the good parts of living together. We only remember the bad parts, and that set us apart. So that's gone through gems, and each one of the gems will be different, and each one will have its own flavor and its own character and its own personality, and hopefully even its own life. But I always like to start from what is here, and that's what is here. And the very first one, the permaculture one, that's going to happen in the south of France, opening the 16th of June.
cool. Can you expand a little, like when you I liked when you said, you know, the role is not necessarily to pick the goal, it's really just to create this container that will allow projects or goals or ideas to kind of grow and flourish from that.
Yeah.
So I guess what does that sort of look like? Like, I mean, is the container itself just this chateau, or like, you know, this conscious living with each other and interacting on a different level?
You know, I have been realizing myself lately from personal experience and also from spaces that I have been, that there is a type of design that doesn't really apply in the normal design that we know. So in the normal design, you get from the general plan down to every single tiny detail until the door hangers or anything, right? And then you set everything, and everything needs to be perfect. And everything will look perfect. The only thing that many times it doesn't fit to the owner, it just fits to the creator. So being an architect, like this is something that we really, really come upon many times. We create the perfect houses, but for no owner. It's a general house for somebody who doesn't exist. And the things that we tend to create all our projects like that, and we forget that the universe has bigger plans than we do, and much further wisdom than my small mind and the small mind of 10 more people can create separately, right? So our idea is to really start understanding how collective intelligence works, how when you connect hearts and minds, what comes up from this field. Uh, the interesting about this type of design is that it cannot be claimed to be of a person, and that's where the difficulties come in our modern world. It cannot be my company, it cannot be my project, but it's fine.
So it comes into play. You know.
Yeah, exactly. So our problems of not doing that until now is ownership. That's why we haven't engaged in this type of design, because we cannot put a label by Aliki Ko under that. But the thing is that, like that, by wanting to have something that is our own, we remain to something smaller. We don't allow it to become magic. We don't allow it to really grow. Because we wanted to have it controlled under our hands.
Aliki, I have to interrupt you for a second. First of
Please.
all, I love the level that you're operating on. First of all, let me just say that. I cannot help but think of the synchronicity of what's going on, because when you talk about creating a container of not necessarily knowing what's going to happen, but just creating the environment where ideas and energy can like flourish. I can't help but think about like what me, Corey, and Justin are doing like with this podcast. Like we're kind of just creating an environment with no necessarily like direction, right? But somehow all these great things keep happening where we're like communicating and it's positive energy and all these good things. It's like really crazy. So I can't help but see the similarities there for sure. Does that make sense? Is that kind of like what you're talking about?
Absolutely. I mean, in the end, the only thing we can do is actually understand what is going on around us, or like read the field practically, and then do the best that we can from what we can understand and see right now, right? So it's an illusion planning further ahead. Nobody knew that COVID would happen, right? I mean, actually we knew. There was a very interesting guideline we had received many people from our team back in October, that there will be a rupture in February, but nobody could ever think that this like global pause will happen, right?
Yeah.
So you get intuitions, you get drives, you get intentions, you get all these. The way to translate them, it can be with many different ways, right? So that's for me, that's what projects are. Like, you just feel that right now you're capable of creating this piece in the global puzzle, and you just put all your efforts and your resources and your mind and your heart and start making this tiny little piece and hoping that this will click with more little pieces and will create something bigger.
Yeah.
I don't think that we can do anything more than that, you know. It's like as simple as that.
So for our listeners out there, so just to clarify, your goal with this event that's going on is for 3 months in the south of France to just show up with a group of 40 people and just kind of see what happens. Is that correct?
Yes, and it goes further than that also. The 3 months is a trial, is the very first experiment, let's say. So we have understood that in order to create something that will have a continuity, you really have to have a very strong base. So that's why we put so many commitments for this first gathering. And I mean, it's not the normal type of event. Nobody really asks for a commitment of 3 months working on a project with a month and a half in advance of notice. It's like, literally, we're putting so many checks that somebody has to go through in order to resonate, because it's really a call. It's not convenient. We just feel that it needs to happen now, and that's why we're doing it. I was just talking with Justin before, like, if I would make a normal business model, it would, to become rich and famous, it would definitely not be that. Trust me. But that's not the point. The point is really we want to set, it's a statement, and it's the beginning of what we believe that needs to start being created, start being shaped. So the 3 months is actually, it's at the very beginning of our journey, and we just want to set a very strong like base. So that's why the 40 people will stay there for the 3 months, because whenever you're creating specific conditions, it is an illusion that you can have people coming in and out and continue growing. Like no company on the planet is hiring people every weekend or every 3 weeks. They understand that you have, by the time you establish a dynamic constellation in your company, then you can start really working on something. And to establish that, it takes time. And it takes more time when all of these people are leaders. It's easier when one is a leader and the others are the followers. It's much easier. But when you're asking for 40 leaders, trust me, it will take time until they really get the dynamics between them and the mutual respect.
Got it. So you're looking to build a base. That's interesting. Cool. Man, I mean, I feel like now's not the good time for me to take 3 months off to go to the south of France, but sounds like it'd be pretty awesome. Corey, 3 months
So
south of France, what do you think?
yeah, it definitely sounds awesome. It sounds cool for sure. So I know this is the first of many that are planned, and the goal is to have after the 3 months, some people stay there all the way kind of through to the end of the year, and then kind of make it this more permanent community that maybe eventually other people come into. And I know you mentioned permaculture. Can you go into what exactly does that mean to you, and why is that the first step that you guys thought this makes sense to start here?
Yes, totally. So there were many interesting locations like fluctuating before we set for the one in France. So there's also two more that we are really, really have a close relationship and looking at. But on the 22nd of April, I woke up in a state, and 22nd of April was the Earth Day, and I don't know how sensible you are about these things, but it was a very, very interesting day for many people because the Earth was really, really talking to us, and many people listened. What came to my awareness was that we are changing the operation system. Last year, maybe you have noticed, everybody was talking about the chakras. So it was all over. All the Translate community, everything was about the chakras, the 7 chakras system.
You're right.
Because last year was all about personal healing. Yeah, it was everywhere. Like I could see like literally everywhere. You can't even imagine. I was like, oh my God. Because last year was about personal healing a lot, and because we need to heal from the individual. It seems that we are changing, we are shifting the operation system from the 7 chakras to the 5 elements. So we are shifting from the personal to the planetary, and the planetary cannot start if we don't ground. So there is this beautiful community that part of it was in the Transtech, that has been roaming around the world for so many years, making conferences and projects and beautiful things that most of them never become reality, if you have noticed. Most of them just remain projects.
You're right.
And that's because we have lost our roots. And the roots cannot be anymore our small town from where we were born. That's not the point. Like the humanity has been changing, but we do need to have a place to call home. And the interesting part about Corona was to observe where everybody has chosen to get locked down. It was a very, very interesting thing to observe. Many people chose to be outside of even their apartment that they were renting, or the house of their parents, or their house that they were born. And that shows a lot. So it is a personal need a lot to really start having these homes around the world, and that's the vision. So like a global village, so many houses around the world, that you don't necessarily have to be in one country all the time, because we're spoiled, because we love to explore the planet, because the planet is beautiful and it has so many places, except from your hometown, right? But also because many different locations can help you grow in different ways. So it's not the same being in the jungle, it's not the same being in the desert, it's not the same being in New York. It's like completely different parts of your personality will be able to grow in the different environments. And the more we can travel freely, the more we realize that. So it's a beautiful opportunity for self-growth, being in different locations. So that's why we're starting with one, but the idea is to grow them into a global network of locations around the world. So you have this choice.
Cool.
That sounds definitely cool. Yeah, you just put yourself in the environment that you feel like you need to kind of have to flourish for, you know, those specific different needs. Yeah, definitely going to feel different if you're in a desert as opposed to a rainforest and jungle, things like that, or some type of very, you know, urban location. So yeah, that's
I think
definitely a cool idea.
It was really synchronistic when you texted me the, you know, invitation for this project. It was the same day that Corey and Jay and we did the environment hacking episode, and we were just talking about like how can we set up our environment to, you know, work the best for us so that we can, you know, flourish and get into flow states. So yeah, it was a cool timing.
Yeah, there are no coincidences in general. So just to answer your question, we start by permaculture because we need the connection to the land first. So the very first element is the earth, and the gem in France is representing the earth. After that, and this after, we will see when it's the right time to, will be about the element of metal. So earth supports metal, and metal will be about the global village. What does that mean? We will see when it's starting. And then the third one is about water, and then the water will be about how to exchange the 4 types of capitals that we are looking at. So financial, the obvious; social, so the connections, networks; intellectual, knowledge, wisdom; and spiritual, so healing and shamanism, and how this can flow towards anybody that needs them whenever they need them. So going back into what nature does, actually, the tree doesn't have to work to get its water and its nutrients; they just flow to him. So that's what we were designed for. I don't know how we came up with the current systems. It's very interesting to see how far away from that we have grown. And
Sure.
then after the water will be the wood element, which is about soul detoxing, so really deep cleansing from inside out, because the 5th one is about creating businesses, so creating free flow ventures and new types of businesses. But you cannot unless you have really cleaned what's remaining there from beliefs, from fears, from limitations. And these 5 will be our first stable structure. So without rush, our intention is to have this structure as soon as it feels right. So one can actually generate the other, and one can support the other.
Cool. Very cool. Man. You this is like blowing my mind right now. You're on such like a interesting wavelength. Like you are so like fine tuned into, I feel like you have like a sense for energy because you just ooze it. Can you dive into what you were doing at TransTech with the meditation rooms? I think she froze. Are you still there? Aliki?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can you dive? You're
here. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, no,
Okay.
yeah, you're frozen.
Yes, I heard you.
So you're doing something in the meditation rooms with wearables, right? And when we walked in, it like changes color based on, you know, what your data shows. Can you dive into that a little bit? And is that going to be something that you have at this, you know, gathering in the south of France?
Sure. This was the beginning of the journey, to tell you the truth. I mean, not the one you saw in the TransTech, but the whole research before. So at some point, a little bit more than a year ago, I realized that for the very first time in my life, I brought myself into a very deep state of happiness that I have never felt before. And the funny part was that 3 years ago, that's what I put as a goal, and I was never believing that it's even possible. So when I felt this feeling that was never there before, I realized that I have changed something, right? And then I got interested. I'm like, how did that happen? As you can imagine, during these 3 years, it was a bunch of different from meditations to healings to everything that was on my path. So it was really difficult to say, this thing brought me there, right? So I wanted to reverse engineer it. And then I started doing an experiment on myself about what happens to our body when we get into this state. You can call it mindful state, you can call it an altered state. And that's where actually that was a period that I met also Justin. And I think you saw me with all the wearables and everything as we were hiking in Switzerland and things like that. The funny part is that by trying to reverse engineer it, I reverse engineered my state of happiness also. No. So 2 months later, I was almost back in depression.
Oh no.
So the very interesting thing was that it got me in a completely different path from where I was hoping to get. But on the same time, I realized that there's a lot of interesting tech that is researching in that direction, and that we can create experiences that not necessarily make us happier, but they can express what happens in the energy world into the physical world. Yeah. So I wanted to create more artistic approaches more than like explaining happiness, let's say. So that's what I did for the trance tech. So practically you could change with your inner state, you were changing the light of the room. So then you can really understand that you can affect your environment by your inner weather, as I call it.
How cool is that? I'm sorry.
That is so cool.
Imagine like you're at a conference, right? Imagine you go to like a chiropractic conference and there's a meditation room with like on the grid, there's like pillows. It's really dark, dim lit. You get a wearable and like, if you make someone feel a certain way, it's just like the light changes color, so you understand how you're affecting their energy. God, that is such a great idea.
Yeah, like, I didn't really smart to just bring awareness to that, because a lot of people don't understand that that's how these things work. When we're interacting with each other in the same room, we're affecting each other's brains on a wavelength level.
The spiritual and the scientific, so you can
super cool
actually see, energy around you.
I think it's brilliant. I just think it's brilliant.
That sounds super cool.
I wish we had these things like all the time. Like if I, you know what I mean? Like if I make Justin feel like mad, it's just like a red thing glows.
Well, if you want, we did go on and make an app and it's working and it's online, but we just never put the effort to really promote it actually. But it's there. If you want, you can use it. And that was kind of like the beginning of the journey in a way. And it really brought me to like very interesting conferences and met beautiful people and all of that. So, and it was what made me interested about coherence. And that was like a buzzword. I mean, it has become a buzzword now, but back like a year ago, it was almost like the new word that was coming up into the not spiritual, more into the
Which word? Coherence?
Coherence. So heart-brain coherence. Okay. Which is it is scientifically documented by the Hardtech math, but we still don't understand much about how it works. And it got me very interested because I realized in my personal meditations that coherence actually is a doorway to other dimensions. So you can imagine the interest there, right?
No,
and
sure.
Yeah.
No, it's true though, right? Because like if you're accessing different parts of your consciousness and you're coherent, is that what you're referring to? And you access different dimensions when you say coherence?
The thing is like there's something happening when you align yourself with the universe and information just starts flowing into you.
I completely agree with you. We talked about this previously.
Like creating those portals when you're...
We actually talked about this on our last podcast. We called it like thinkitation, like when you're relaxed and meditating and you kind of tap into your subconscious and pull things out from another dimension, like you're really pulling out information, just letting your consciousness tap in to your subconscious. I'm obsessed with this stuff right now. It's just crazy.
It's very cool.
That makes me think of, I guess, have you heard of simulation theory? Oh, I think we lost.
It's amazing. I have, but I would like to hear your approach into it because there are many approaches in this theory.
First, so no, I would love to hear your approach first because we talk about this all the time. And
different approaches.
Do you have any? First of all, no. Do you have any opinions on simulation theory?
I will take you from another angle. Let's say, do you believe that there is truth? There is like absolute truth?
Objective truth. That's a great question.
Hmm.
I think truth, just like everything else in the universe, is relative.
Relative. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It's a perception.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
No objectivity is also.
even if it's not a simulation from somebody else, what we perceive, it's still simulation from our own
Yeah.
perspective,
Mhm.
right? So we don't see the reality. We cannot see reality.
No.
We're trying, like with all the healing and all the energy work, we are really trying to get as deep as possible, as not putting filters in what we see, right? But we still can't. It's extremely difficult.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. Like when you're trying to do all these things like, ascend and, become, tap into your higher self, you're really trying to access a higher truth. That's an interesting way to put it. When I was at that crazy party, some guy was like, yeah, he's like, he's tripping his balls off. He's like, yeah, dude. He's like, we're in a simulation, but it's not a computer. And I was like, oh, dang. It's like, he's probably right. It's probably some crazy technology that we can, that they couldn't fathom 200 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, just like they couldn't fathom like an iPhone. Like, we're not gonna be able to fathom whatever is coming,
And that's
But-
exactly the point. Like, the whole thing about what I was creating in Transtake, it took me all the way to Davos, like in the place that I was dreaming about being, to tell you the truth. Like, it was really, really interesting to be in the heart of the World Economic Forum, making a spiritual ashram for all kinds of interesting entrepreneurs. It's like literally the Burning Man of Davos. But what showed us is that our technology is still not there, and that what we need to look at is actually in human technology. So how we can shift ourselves to tap into information without needing a device that needs to be charged in electricity. And this is the field that we are really looking at right now. Sorry, what did you want to say?
No, you're right. That's a great point. Kind of like, you kind of not, it's not really a tangent, but to bring up CRISPR, right? So like gene editing, like imagine if we could, looking into ourselves to the point where we could alter our genes where it affects our consciousness and we can tap into deeper levels of consciousness. I never really thought about that before. It's a really interesting conversation. We don't really tap into this stuff too much, but you're really taking it to interesting places.
Yeah, you just think of the body as this, giant component where it's all of our thoughts and perceptions and beliefs are all just these electrical signals that are hitting our brain. So if we can alter our machine to tap into these, other levels of consciousness, that's where the technology could really, allow us to become a better sensor. Because right now we don't have that many senses compared to all these pieces of technology where it's like, oh, if we could just see through the dark, or we could just hear things from 1,000 yards away, just have these superhuman powers, what we consider, that blending of technology and where we're going to take the human race is definitely going to be an interesting ride for sure.
Absolutely. The thing is, like, we can. I have experienced myself like only 2 times, so it's not like, you really have to train it, right? And I don't claim to be training it so much, but I have experienced 2 times that I was having exactly the same experience as being on mushrooms without have been taking anything for months. So they couldn't be also a reliving, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly the same experience. Like everything around was HD. Everything was moving. It was exactly the same experience as being on mushrooms. Everything, but it was just because of energy. It was just because of opening of the chakras. So we just have forgotten how to do it.
Interesting. Was that through like a really deep level of meditation where you just kind of just got to this certain point, or?
The first one was during a meditative hike that we did with a spiritual teacher, that he knew how to shake energy in general, but we were practically doing a hike and doing some small meditations in specific spots. And of course, the place also helps, right? Like it was a very beautiful caves and the water from the glacier was coming down. So for sure, this also helps. But I couldn't call it a deep meditation. It was a very deep state, but it was not like a 3 hours meditation or anything, right? And the second one, I have no idea why it happened, to tell you the truth. I was just at home. I was actually reading about alchemization, and probably something happened there. So it was mostly about the information at the right time.
What were you reading about?
So I was reading about alchemization. Apparently, there is some connection between alchemy, the way we have it in our minds about searching for gold and transforming metals, and elements that you can use inside yourself to transform your inner experience into gold, so into the purest form of a metal, let's say. So I was reading about that, and it's very interesting because it has to do with sexual transmutation, which is a very interesting practice that I came across lately. And it's practically channeling vital energy through your chakras, so you can activate them all and transform the animal instinct into higher levels of consciousness. So yeah, so it happened with no obvious reason the second time, and that means that it's something that can happen. And if we know how to do it, we probably can do it whenever we want. So imagine this power. You don't even have to to go out and search for anything.
That'd be sweet. Just like going to the beach. Just
Yep.
Exactly.
You mentioned 3-hour meditation. What's the longest amount of time you've ever meditated for?
So the longest amount of time was the first time I ever meditated. The first thing I did was 10 days of Vipassana. So I really like dived into meditation.
Whoa. Well, you did like a 10-day like meditation retreat?
Yeah.
Wait.
You know Vipassana? It's one of the most famous ones, let's say, just because.
Yep, I've heard.
It's called Pasana.
Vipassana.
Vipassana.
Oh, we're going, Corey. Sign us up. We're doing it. We're going to talk about it on the next podcast.
So it's awesome. I mean, it's a very, very interesting organization because it's completely donation based, meaning it's for free. You donate if you want. It's all around the world, and it's hardcore.
I mean, hardcore.
It's 10 days.
When you say 10 days, like where'd you go? Can you walk us through this? Because we've actually talked about meditation retreats before, and I would love to get details.
Sure. So it's there are specific locations, at least there are centers, right? So it's all around the world. You just have to find the center, and then you really have to apply the time they open the positions because they are booked like in seconds. So they have like long waiting lists and things like that. So I went to Argentina because it was the closest to Brazil. I couldn't find any open in Brazil for the dates that I could go, and then it's 10 days. By the time you enter, you give your phone, book, and everything. You don't have anything with you. You're just like yourself and some clothes. And it's 10 days of silent meditation, so you don't talk to anybody.
For the whole 10 days, at no point do you speak to anyone?
No.
Like not even when you're like registering and signing in, you're not like, my name is...
You're signing in, yes, okay.
Okay, and then after you pass like over a line, you walk over a line and like no talking once you go this direction? Like how does that work? They're just... Oh no, we lost her.
It's okay. It seems to be.
Yeah.
Back in a few seconds.
So it's not talking, not looking the eyes, and not saying anything. So I understood why these rules. So you're meditating practically from 5 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the afternoon, with some gaps in between for food and a little bit of rest and to hear some teachings.
Wow.
You're not allowed to do anything else. So you cannot do yoga, you cannot run, you have only specific perimeter that you can walk around. Wow. You cannot kill anything, which is very, very difficult when it's summer and you have mosquitoes biting you because you cannot kill them.
What?
Yeah. Right. It's of course like vegetarian food, etc. And it's almost like a success recipe for breakthroughs and awakenings, and that's why they have created like that.
Wow.
So what happened to me?
Yeah. What was the result?
What was your big breakthrough? Yeah. What was the biggest thing you got from it?
So what happened to me was that the first 3 days was fine. I was able to, I mean, you have a lot of pain because of the position and things like that. But okay, right? I was able to follow the meditation. I was doing pretty well. It was cool. The third day, I got an idea about the project. God, my brain just couldn't stop thinking about it. And that's not the point, right? That's not why I was there. So the next 3 days were actually torture, like a self-torture of my mind. Couldn't focus at all. I couldn't, like, it was just torture. And then the interesting thing is that a very funny feeling in the stomach started happening. So kind of a weight, kind of a pain in a way. And then we were already in the day 6, and I was really getting into my limits of not doing what I'm supposed to do, right? And then I remember I was just sitting, and I just start talking to my brain, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna give up. We're not gonna go from here. We're gonna stay the 10 days. If you want to continue thinking about the project, it's fine. We're gonna stay here, both of us, torturing each other for the next 4 days. If that's the way you want to do it, that's the way we're going to do it. And that day, it was the best meditation ever. My mind completely shut down. It was an amazing feeling. I felt that I was turning around, and all the weight from my stomach just disappeared. Years later, I realized that that's what they call awakening. I had no idea. The interesting part is that it got me interested. So I was like, okay, so we can talk. So let's talk.
You can.
So I realized I can negotiate.
Yeah, you can like talk to yourself, like your higher self can talk to your lower self. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I don't know this. I mean, there are many questions that come from this realization. That's why it's an awakening, right? Because it's like, if my brain is not myself, then who is that talking to my brain, right? Who is the me talking to me? So that's the whole point, that it gets you interested to understand that there is an essence behind the mind.
Yes. I'm literally, it's crazy. Like Ray Dalio talks about this in his book. He's like an investor, you know what I mean? It's like, he's like, there's 2 yous. There's a machine within the machine. That's how he puts it. Oh my God, this year has been like so eye-opening to me now, because I think about this every day, you know, like literally every day. And like I'm meditating, and it's just like, and I feel things surface, and it's so easy for me to be like, what are you talking about? Get out of here, you know? But it literally helps me throughout the day. If I start to think about something negative, I'm just like, no. Come right back. And it literally, and I see what happens in my life. Now I'm so focused. My life just keeps going in better and better directions. It's like, I don't know if that's what they call enlightenment. I'm not sure what they call it, but I definitely feel something. And I don't know. I'm kind of obsessed with talking about it lately, if you can't tell.
No, that's what it happens. Like when you start, I mean, that's the end of reprogramming of like the culture programming, right? Like you understand that it's one thing talking to you, and it's another thing who you are, and they don't necessarily match. Ideally, they will eventually, right? And then we're stepping into the non-dualistic states. But in most people, these two are 2 different things. And most of our suffering and our problems come out of this disconnection, actually, of the 2. So yeah, that's what happened to me in the meditation, and it just got me interested. Like literally, I discovered a playground, and since then I haven't stopped playing. It's like all this field is just endless. It has so many approaches. It has so many interesting things, and the more you dive into it, the more you see that there is no bottom, practically.
How can people that are interested in this stuff, you know, keep going and take it to the next level? Like, what would you recommend for someone like me to like really to amplify what I'm feeling right now?
One very interesting part is really to test your levels of surrendering. So surrendering is one of the difficult ones, but it really proves you this higher plan and design that is beyond us. So try for a day to have no schedule at all. Just allow the city to take you around, and it will take you to beautiful places. I can guarantee that.
Yeah.
And observe yourself tapping into the fear state of having to plan because you think that nothing will happen, because it will tap into this state. It's normal. But then consciously allow yourself to just flow, and then you will see that your senses get heightened without being stressful heightened. You're just observe, you're just there, you know, like the animals that they're not stressed, but if something happens they realize it, right?
Yeah.
It's this state of awareness, of alertness, and this state is actually what can allow us to see opportunities and tap into fields that we couldn't see otherwise. So we tend to block a lot of things from our reality. Everything is there. And that's what you realize once you start looking around. We cannot see it. Everything is there. It's not that we find anything. We just open up doors and then we see a little bit further, but reality is there. So that goes take it back into the simulation theory, I guess.
We talk about this all the time. I love how you're just approaching it from like a different angle, kind of, right? We talk about how your brain is really a filtration device. Like they call it the reticular activating system. So everything exists, but you're only going to find what you believe, right? You're only looking for certain things and you will find those things. So if you actually shift your beliefs, you'll shift what you find in the universe, you know?
And by the time you start tapping into other organs also, then it's the magic start happening.
What? So mind blown.
What other organs do we need to tap into? What can you give us some examples of what?
I mean, all organs have their own wisdom, right? But let's start from the more obvious, the heart. I mean, we know by now that the heart is 100 times more potent than the brain, right? The heart is sending more signals to the brain than the brain to the heart, meaning who's talking there? But the important thing is that the magnetic field of the heart is 6 times bigger than the magnetic field of the brain, meaning everything that comes into your biofield, your heart can feel it before your brain can. And that's what is intuition practically. That's what it is. I mean, you know when somebody's walking towards you and you don't know the person and you already have a feeling if you like them or not, right? What is this?
Yeah.
It's a blend.
Yeah. No, this is crazy to me because you're literally saying everything that like Ray Dalio says just in a completely different way. Like I'm applying it the same exact way. Like your body controls your mind. A lot of people don't realize that, right? And you really have like, it's like he's holding on for dear life and he's just getting zapped with whatever is affecting you. And like when something does happen, like you react to it instinctually before you actually stop and think about it analytically, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love how you're wording everything. This is pretty great.
So look, the brain is just another organ that we have glorified in the Western world, right? Like the ancient cultures, actually they were taking the brain out when somebody was dying, but they were preserving the heart because they were not believing that it was something important to have in a second life if you come back, funnily enough. So, I mean, we have been overcharging the brain with functions that it's not able to do. For example, emotions. The brain is there to find dangers, right? That's its main goal, and to analyze the situation to see how dangerous it is. That's what it's good at. Yeah. And that is really, really good. But in other things, it's not really good, actually. And we have been putting everything into the brain. In the end, how I feel, we have created these humans with a huge bubble here that is really, really, you don't know where to place this thing. And it's really creating you more problems than solutions in the end. And we have left all the other bodies suffering when it's really screaming for attention and understanding that when you tap into full body knowledge and understanding, first of all, you can store much more information because you don't need to store all the information just in a tiny part here. You have the whole body to store information. And second, you start understanding that we have different senses. So, I mean, intuition is the first sense that we kind of have developed already. I think it's like in very good states of developing intuition. And we are moving into new senses, which is kind of awesome that we are tapping into that. I mean, we have been synchronizing a lot lately, and it happens even more due to the situations. We start understanding that we affect each other's thinking. So if I think something right now, it's very possible that it will appear in some part of your heads also. And then the question comes in, who's thinking? Where does the thought come from, you know?
Like the collective consciousness.
Exactly. So there are many questions that arise by the time you understand that we are much more than just a computing machine with two hands and two legs.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Aliki, thank you so much for sharing all this information. Can you like tell everyone like where we can find you online and you have a website and stuff like that?
Sure. So there are two websites. One is my personal, so it's mindfulexperience.me. And the second one is the one of our project, which is consciousgems.me. So you can find me there. You can also find me in Facebook. So I'm Aliki Ko, so Aliki Ko. And I'm happy to connect to anybody who feels resonance. It's what I'm experimenting right now, to really allow what comes into my field to be shared and see what ripples creates around the project and around myself, and what brings back as a feedback.
Cool. You guys have any other questions?
I can think of.
Super cool. There's a lot to think about now, for sure.
Honestly, I feel like I could ask you like a billion questions, but we can't take up all of your time. Maybe we'll dive into this a little bit. Maybe we'll have you back on in a couple of months and see how things are going.
Yeah, well, for the first experiment in France, are you guys gonna like go off the grid, like no Wi-Fi, no phones, kind of thing? And
No, not at all. The
Okay.
idea is not to be disconnected, actually. The idea is to get reconnected. We're just gonna start by the connection in the community, but we are totally online, and we're probably gonna be broadcasting. And I feel that the new model that is coming up is actually I like the word glocalization. So it's like smaller communities with their own identity, but connected to the bigger grid. We cannot really believe that we can live alone. I mean, we don't really even want to live alone, right?
No, that doesn't sound like fun.
No.
Okay, this will definitely be cool. I'm super excited for you guys. Definitely sounds like this next, Southern France time is going to be the first step in just this incredible direction. So I'm super excited to see, where it goes, where it grows, and what you guys learn and find out. So
what date?
Stay tuned.
When does it start?
It starts on the 16th of June.
Oh, cool.
And we're going to be having a beautiful ceremony on the 21st, 22nd. Probably, on the 21st will be a ceremony with shamans and healers from around the world, creating a global celebration with different traditions. And then on the 22nd, there will be all modern initiatives resonate to create a new earth, so they can plant their seed into what we believe to be the new normal, or what we are setting as the new normal. So it's an invitation for everybody who resonates in any way to just jump on board and see how we can dream the new future all together.
Cool.
I'm so glad that you have taken the initiative and are spearheading this and organizing everything, because I definitely believe it's very good for the world and very useful.
It's time to connect also ancient wisdom with young drive, let's say. It has always been separate, but I think it's time to just bring them together. Both hold a code, like a key. And together they can be very powerful.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll end it there. Thank you so much, Aliki.
Thank you so much for having me. I would love to hear more about the show also before we go.
Just, we're just having fun. We're just having fun, but we'll definitely, we'll tell you more about it off the air for sure.
Beautiful.
All right.
Cool. So
Very cool.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.